Hello, hello, hello. Happy Sunday afternoon. This is the month of October. Summer is still hanging in, I like to say. We still have these beautiful warm days, and I'm hoping that you are enjoying them. Welcome to another Conversations with JR, where we like to say that we are changing lives one conversation at a time. Today's topic, the process. Now, we often hear people say that they're going through the process or you have to go through the process, whatever the process means to each individual. However, according to Webster's definition of the word process, it refers to a series of actions, operation, or changes carried out to achieve a specific result. For some people, going through a process can be changing, life changing. And I'm hoping for the better and not for the worse. You know, some people go through changes and they grow spiritually, they grow personally, they get mental clarity, or they heal emotionally when they're going through whatever healing process that they need to go through. Some from a broken relationship, divorce, substance treatment, whatever the process is to each individual, it means something different. Um, anyway, going through the process, I decided to think about what it really means going through a process. And it's also a personal journey, or it could be a fight against something and working your way back towards something that is good. Going through the process can be mentally, emotionally, physically, in some case, financially challenging and taxing. So at this point, you might be thinking, wait a minute. You mean to tell me I am facing this daunting, life changing event? I'm trying to go through this process, and you're telling me that it's going to be more mental anguish, emotional healing. Physically, I have to be prepared for this. And financially, it might be challenging. Yes, I'm saying that to my listeners. And it could be much more. Listen, going through the process means that you are overcoming a challenge, problems, issue, whatever it is that you're going through in your life. And yes, I am saying exactly that. It might get worse before it gets better. However, in this conversation, I'm here to tell you that there is power in the process. That's going to be the title of this podcast. There is power in the process. I started thinking about the power in the process because I am constantly going through different life events and different processes and having to make different changes and adjustments. But we often don't think about the power going through these changes and the steps and the process and what we actually really gain. Some people go through life changing events and they get through it and they go, oh, God, I'm glad that's all. But what did they learn? What did they gain? Are they going to go back to certain patterns that led them to that life changing event in the first place? Did you sit during the process, during the healing process, during the challenge? Did you sit with your thoughts? Did you sit with your emotions? Did you really think about what happened, why it happened, how you contribute to what happened? We don't want to point fingers. We don't want to play the blame game. We don't want to be the victim. And this is what I was thinking about when I was thinking about the power in the process. Many years ago, Ayala Van Zandt wrote a book called Value in the Valley. Now, to describe the valley, according to biblical terms, when you are in a valley, it's deep. It's like the wilderness. You're struggling. There may not be anybody around to support you. There may not be anybody around to help you. But according to Ayala Von Zandt's book, Value in the Valley, she wrote that while in the valley or in the depths of a challenge, we need to embrace the value of confronting our fears, the limitation, the mistakes, the setback, the experience, because this time of grief and pain while you are in the valley can bring about great change. If we learn to see the value of the unpleasant experience, if we learn to see the value, and that's why I say that there is power in the process. Do you understand how to go through the process? Do you understand the steps of the process? And one of the things that I would like to say today on Conversation with JR is that not only is there power in the process, but there is clarity. There is so much clarity. And while you're going through the process, may I suggest that you take care of yourself and you get quiet. Yes, I said that. Let's get quiet. Getting quiet means stop talking your business to everyone. Stop playing the victim role. Woe is me. Look what happened to me. Look what she, he, them, they, that did to me. Yes, it's what's done. You know, I'm sorry. Whatever the situation is in a relationship, it could be a home, it could be a job, it could be a personal friendship, it could be family. Stop talking to everyone about your business and seek support from professionals or groups that people who are going through the same things that you are. Write, journal your ass off. Yes, write it out, cry it out, scream it out. Go through the process. Go through the process of sitting with your thoughts alone. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. It's all about the power in the process. Getting quiet for some people might be difficult, but consider this. Do you need the surrounding yourself with chatter from others and external voices that may not be helping you while you're going through this process? Think about it. Think about some of the things that people are saying when you are facing a life challenge. Is it helpful? Is it supportive? If it's meaningful? Are they a shoulder that you could just go and cry on and they just sit there? Are they the ear at the other end of the phone when you just need to rant and get it out and they say nothing? Okay? Get quiet. Quiet the voices. Get quiet. Sit with your thoughts. Turn off the TV. Disconnect from social media. This is the process. You're going through the process. You want to understand the power of the process and the stages of the process. You want to welcome each stage. And like I said, no one can tell you how long this process is going to be. No one can tell you when you have overcome. No one can tell you when you have completely healed, but you will know. You will know. Let me explain. In 2018, this was a big turning point in my life. I mean, huge turning point in my life. And I understood during this time, this challenging time in my life, when Ayala Von said about the value in the valley. It was through the process of healing from a broken engagement that I discovered how to go through the process of healing and what it truly means to go through the process of healing and the power of the process that brought me clarity about what I was thinking, what I was thinking about the world, what I was thinking about relationships and why all my relationships seems to keep failing me. I learned more about myself in this 90-day process. And I'm going to explain the 90-day process to you. I learned more about me, who I am, going through this process. What I set out to do was take care of myself after the breakup. It was major. I've broken up with, men before, but this was an engagement. I was 55 years old, and I thought, after waiting and after not dating for years and struggling to get my master's and do other things, that I had finally found the one. I had finally found the one. I left my apartment and I moved in with this man, my fiance at the time. And it took 90 days for me to discover that I had made a major mistake. That ring that he put on my finger was costly. And I'm not talking about monetary. I'm telling you, it was costly. On my YouTube channel, Conversations with JR, I did a YouTube video called Let's Talk About the Ring. And you might say, JR, what does this have to do with the process? Because the process of me meeting this man, getting this ring, giving up my apartment and moving in with him and living with him for 90 days and decided that no, this is not going to work out. It was a process. And I was paying attention at that time to the process. I was definitely paying attention at the time to the process. You might say, why did you give up your apartment? Why didn't you wait until you got married? No, it was a good thing that I did, the process. Because had I held on to my apartment, he wouldn't have never showed me who he really was. While we were courting and I was living in my own and he was living in his own and I was just going to his apartment on the weekends, he represented himself. He was a representative, and I didn't know. I got caught up in the process of, my God, I'm going to get married finally. So, getting back to when engagement broke off and why I say I went through a 90 days of healing, I did. And during that 90 days, I decided that I wasn't going to wallow. I wasn't going to cry. First of all, I was in shock because I had to get up and move out of this man's house. This is the first time in years that I've ever lived with anyone. He didn't give me much time. I had to pack up my stuff. I had to put it in storage. I had to find a room. And I love the area where I found my room. At 54 years old, I found myself almost losing everything. But I found this room and this house with this beautiful family, and I continued on to live my life. I didn't have time to sit around and wallow, oh, woe is me. I had stuff to do. I had to work. I had to keep life going. So what I did was I took care of myself for 90 days. I journaled for 90 days. I fast, I prayed, I exercised. And what I discovered in those 90 days of being quiet, not going around family and friends talking about this whole ordeal, and a lot of people didn't even know for a very long time that we had the engagement was broken. I didn't tell a lot of people. I didn't say anything. I stayed away. I stayed away. And when I talk to people, when people ask me, well, how was John? I said, oh, he's fine. That's what I did. I said, he's fine. I didn't want to go through the whole story. I didn't need to go through the whole story. While I was doing my journaling for 90 days, I turned my attention towards myself. I didn't turn the attention towards trying to find out why this relationship didn't work. That's what I would normally do, but I didn't. Remember the quietness, the peace, and going through the process. And thankfully that I moved into a place in an area where it was quiet and there's a park, and I would start walking around the outside of this huge park like everybody else in the neighborhood did. It was, beautiful, and I would be able to think and refresh myself. And what I had to learn from this healing process is that I did not heal from a lot of traumatic experiences that I thought I did. In 2015, I wrote my first book called The Waiting Game. And I thought that I had purged myself. I had gone through years of therapy. I survived a domestic violence relationship. And I thought that I had healed from some traumatic experiences in my life. But I did not. Neither did I learn lessons during that period of time. I did not. What I learned this time around was that I was defining myself through relationships, and I was spending too much time in dysfunctional relationships. My entire family was dysfunctional. I had a dysfunctional childhood, adolescence, young adulthood. I became a young, a single mother. It was a mess. I went from trauma to trauma to trauma, from trauma to trauma to drama. And I thought that I finally, after years, I thought that I had finally like leveled up my life. But I was still doing the same thing. I was still going from relationship to relationship. There was no healing. There was no discovery about me, myself, and spending time with me, myself, and I, and spending time alone with myself. I didn't know what that meant, even though I was going through therapy at that time that was teaching me this. And I thought that I had mastered it, but I didn't. The greatest moment of awakening during this 90-day of going through the process of healing and listening to myself and being quiet and journaling is when I honestly realized that I did not know at the age of 55, I'm now 61, that I did not know who I was. I didn't. I was trying to define myself through career, through education, through being somebody's wife, being Mrs. Somebody. I was just trying to define myself through so many different avenues that I didn't know who I was and what I really wanted out of life. So, doing this 90-day process of me healing and fasting and journaling and crying and talking on my YouTube channel, I have so many. Go to my YouTube channel, Conversations with JR. I talked about so many things during that period of time that I started asking myself questions. There's the power in the process. I started asking myself questions that I basically had to answer. And the first question I asked myself is, girl, why do you want to be married? What's wrong with you? Why do you want to be in a relationship? And what's wrong with you? You wrote The Waiting Game. You talked about the relationship mess. You talked about all of this functional things that people do that lead them into being emotionally broken from relationships. What are you doing? That's what I was saying to myself. Girl, what are you doing? And so I transitioned from the room to a one-bedroom apartment. And I had to start all over again. And let me tell you, I started all over again when the pandemic hit. Like, I moved into the apartment. I moved into this apartment that I'm sitting in now with a couch, table, and chairs, and a put together bedroom set. But it was mine. And I started all over again. And I was determined to not only rebuild this apartment, but rebuild my life, reinvent myself, understand who I am, where I came from, where I want to go, and how I was going to get there. And that's exactly what I did. And after the 90 days was over with, and I journal, and I'm telling you, I sweat over that journal. I thought, you know what? I'm going to share this journal, and I turned it into a book. And the book is called 90 Days of Reflection, Discovery, and Renewal. And what I discovered through that 90 days of going through the process was very empowering. And it brought to me great clarity. You see, I'd not only hit that brick wall, but it caused me pain, deep pain. And I kept saying to myself, why do you want to keep going through this emotional brokenness, this emotional pain over and over and over? You on your YouTube channel talking to people about these things, and look at you. So I just began to just stay to myself and rebuild myself and create my space the way I wanted to create my space. And what I discovered was I like sleeping alone. There's power in the process. I do like sleeping alone. Is it lonely? No. No, I like my bed. I like sleeping late. I don't like people making noise around me. So JR, why are you saying these things? Because I was learning about who I am and what I like and what I don't like, and what I will put up and what I won't put up with. I learned after all those years, no one taught me, no one said anything to me, that I don't have to invite everyone into my home. I don't have to invite every man into my home. I don't have to invite every male into my bed. I don't have to say yes to every male. I don't have to say yes to the dates. I don't have to feel compelled to give myself over to someone because they are psychologically talking me into this and making me feel guilty because they spent their money on me. Keep your money. This is what I learned. This is what I learned. Because when I turned around at the end of the day, when I looked around moving into this apartment, where were they? Rebuilding this apartment, rebuilding my life. I'm not bashing. I want you to hear what I am saying. This is the power that I've learned in the process. This is the power that I've learned. It's 6 years later, 7 years later. I'm 61 years old. I have not been out on a date. No, I have not. I have not invited a man into this home, my new home. It's just me and my dog Peanut. I got Peanut after the pandemic because I went through the pandemic living here alone. But during that time of being shut in, shut down, and shut off, I went on Facebook Monday and Wednesday and I connected with my audience like never before. I worked from home and I discovered things about myself, the quiet time, the quietness, the separation. Oh, I know for some people it was disastrous, but for me it was amazing. It really, really was amazing. I learned that I can be alone, I can be by myself. It is a struggle, but I want a different type of relationship, different type of friendships, different type of intimacy. No longer will I go for one-sided relationships, one-sided friendships, and even being one-sided in family relationships. I will not accept that. No longer will I accept brainwashing and men who make me feel like, I should be glad that they are looking at me and speaking to me and talking to me. No, you should be glad that I'm in your space. You should be glad that I'm in your. I finally got my master's degree. I published during that period of time from 2015 up until now. I have published The Waiting Game, A Different Flavor of Love, The Conversation, 90 Days of Reflection, Renewal, and Discovery. After 18 years of writing my first play last year, October 2024, it was on stage at the Producers Club. You're saying, why are you saying all this, JR? Because when I went through the process, I discovered what it is that I wanted and how it is that I wanted to do it. And I cannot do it if I'm in dysfunctional relationships that are pulling me down instead of supporting me, uplifting me, guiding me, cheering me on. I, I wasn't getting any of that. But what I discovered was that I can give all that to myself. And I am telling you right now, at the age of 61 years old, it is difficult. It is hard taking care of yourself 7 days a week. And then I got this little fur baby over here. But it's rewarding. A few years ago, about 3, 4 summers ago, I accomplished one of my bucket list dreams. I drove across country from New York City to California. Amazing. It's amazing. I am traveling more now. Before, I thought that I needed a man to come into my life to take me on these trips, to show me the better side of life. No, no, no. See, that's the power of the process there. I didn't know these things. You're probably listening to this and say, girl, where you been at? Hiding underneath a rock? No, I haven't been hiding underneath a rock. The lack of learning, the lack of having models in my life, mentors in my life, guiding me, because I thought that all of the things that I desired would come when I got what I thought would be the perfect relationship. Oh my God. But anyway, that's the power of the process. That's the value being in the valley. That is the power of me facing my fears, understanding that I do not have any limitation, confronting me and all my faults, and blaming me and not blaming others. That's the power of the process. I was willing to go through it. I was willing to ask myself the hard questions. I was willing to be honest with the answers. I was willing. Now, you might say, okay, so what has happened since then? I've been great. Got a new career. I'm now working 3 years into working as a clinical supervisor for people who have mental health and substance abuse. That's a tough job. Oh, let me tell you that. It's a tough job, but I feel empowered by the fact that I can be self sufficient. And I'm not saying independent, I can be self sufficient, and that I can uphold myself and take care of myself, and that I have created a community of people that I can trust and that have supported me and that cheer me on. Am I looking for another intimate relationship? Yes, hopefully in time. If not, life goes on. And life is getting better and better for me each and every day. I am meeting powerful women and powerful groups. I am connecting to women, especially like women who have reinvented themselves after divorce. And they have gone through the process and they have empowered themselves and they have found their voice. I have found my voice, my footing, my creativity. I have found everything. That's the power of the process. And I am saying to my listeners right now, the power of the process, it's not easy to go through the process. I questioned myself a lot. I blamed myself a lot. I looked a lot at me. And I had to unlearn all the negativity. I had to unlearn all the, the, the myths. I had to learn that I do not have to fit in to the principles of what society says that I should be as a Black woman and as a woman, period. And so that's what I have to say to you today about the process. You should go and read Ayala Van Zandt's book, Value in the Valley. My book, 90 Day of Discovery, Reflection, Renewal, is on Amazon, but you could also go to my Facebook page. I have my own book website called floydsbooks.com. Um, I just encourage you to understand what the process is, what your process is. It's not like everybody else's process, and no one can tell you how to go through that process. And it'll be dark days, and it seems like the days will get darker and darker and stormy, and the pain will get more intense, and you just feel like you're going to just break apart and that you can't stand anymore. And that's when the breakthrough happens. Believe in the process, believe in yourself, and it'll happen for you. I am so glad for the power of the process, that it has made me into the person that I am now. The experiences that I had, although they have been painful and they caused me traumatic experiences, I am over, I am healing, I understand, I am healed, I understand how not to go back into those cycles and those patterns anymore. And I'm hoping the same thing for you, that you will find the power in the process. Until the next time, this is Conversations with JR. I hope that this was a healing process and conversation for you.